Hello, very nice to be with you, even if virtually, not be able to attend in person like I have done at previous conferences. But anyway, what I'd like to talk about in this session is really looking at the global brain back then when it started, when I started thinking about it, and where it is today. So this is sort of the global brain back then and 40 years on, or even 50 years on, really, because I first started thinking about the idea of a global brain back in the 70s. And it came about for several reasons. One, I just completed a postgraduate degree in computer science at the University of Cambridge. And I was fascinated by computers, but also I saw the very, very beginning of networking of computers. We had a huge computer upstairs occupying a whole floor and a smaller computer downstairs occupying a room. We had a huge cable coming down, and I was working on the linking of the two computers, getting them to speak to each other. And what I saw back then was that the future of computing wasn't just getting bigger and faster computers, but it was also about the networking of computers, joining computers together. And the insight I had was, like, this is going to happen across the planet. We're going to be linking together through computer networks, much the same way as the brain develops in the womb. And what happens in the womb, just very, very briefly, is in the first 3 months is this massive proliferation of nerve cells. And then basically you have most of the nerve cells for the rest of your life. And then it's the connecting together of the nerve cells that leads to increased intelligence, creativity, and all the factors we associate with the human mind. So I could see that, the population of humanity is still growing, but beginning to stabilize. And the next stage is the linking together of humanity through these computer networks in a global brain. And at the same time, James Lovelock, a British chemist, had come up with the idea of the Gaia hypothesis, Gaia being the Greek name for the Mother Earth goddess. And he was suggesting if you look at the whole of the biosphere, the whole of the living systems on Earth, including the atmosphere, the soil, the oceans, the whole thing seems to function like one single living organism. And the question that came up for me then is, okay, what's humanity doing here? We're this young upstart on the planet. It's been functioning for billions of years as this organism, and suddenly, in a brief flash of cosmic time, we're here. What are we doing? What function do we have? And on the pessimistic side is, well, maybe we're a global cancer with some sort of virus or something. But then on the other side is maybe we are the brain of the planet, because what humans are good at is information processing. We are the information processors. That limiting, we are like the nerve cells of the planet. And at the same time, I'd been reading a lot of Teilhard de Chardin, who was saying, if you look at evolution, we've been through the evolution of the physical Earth. We've then been through what he called the geosphere. We've then been through the evolution of life, the creation of the biosphere. And now he saw the next stage in evolution was the evolution of mind across the planet, the noosphere. And so he was talking about some collective consciousness emerging. And that again tied in with what I was looking at. And then finally, I'd at this stage just come back from spending some time in India with the Maharishi, and that was a very important time for me. And what I saw then so clearly was, wherever we're going in the future, the awakening of consciousness is absolutely important. The values we have, the ways we think about things, all our problems are basically coming back to the human consciousness. So we need to awaken human consciousness as well. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a little while. So that was really what started me interested in the global brain. And I wrote my book, The Global Brain, what's called The Awakening Earth in England and The Global Brain in America. I forget what it's called now in Brazil, but anyway. And then I produced the video of it, which actually took the idea out further than any book could have done. It was being shown in schools and through various meetings, conferences. And I think that's what really got the idea out, was my video, The Global Brain, which was actually made 40 years ago, not today, but 40 years ago this year. And since then, the the last 40 years, we've seen incredible, unbelievable growth in the linking of humanity. Back then, we were all thinking about, computer networks as data driven, just exchanging numbers, data, that was it. No one saw, the World Wide Web coming along. No one saw that then. And then no one saw we'd be using it for images, for videos, for streaming movies, for social media, for online shopping. I mean, today, the internet, the World Wide Web is, there in our lives nearly all the time in one way or another, or on the phones. I mean, just how much do we use our phones, and how much of that is actually accessing the internet in one way or another? So 40 years on, it's happening. The global brain is really, really evolving. And it's evolving faster and faster because, as some of you may know, the technology is just expanding so fast. Computer systems, their power, their efficiency is probably doubling every 18 months, which means, maybe in a few years from now, maybe at the end of this decade, we'll have computers that are as smart as human beings. And when that happens, it'll go even faster. And so who knows where we'll be in 10 years' time in terms of the evolution of the global brain. So this is sort of an intermediate update. But, that possibility of us really linking together, not only linking our minds together, but because we are really communicating with each other, linking our hearts together, that I think is what is going to be so, so important. And almost probably even more important is actually bringing about the full conscious awakening of humanity. And 50 years ago, the interest in this area in sort of spiritual awakening was very small. I remember at Cambridge, in my local library, my local bookstore rather, there was one shelf about this long of books on other religions other than Christianity and Islam and the classic ones. Now you go into any town and you'll find bookstores devoted to this. Thousands and thousands of books, all coming from us all learning from each other, discovering things in ourselves, reading other books, watching videos, learning from the internet. And so this is also growing exponentially. And now, the bookstores are not only full of books, but videos and audios and so many other ways to help us in our awakening. And so all this positive feedback means it's growing faster and faster and faster. So now it's become almost mainstream. I mean, big companies are now very proud of the fact they actually include meditation instruction for their employees. When I was back then, companies didn't want to know about it. They were embarrassed if I was teaching meditation to them. They said, don't let anybody know, But, we believe in it. And the other thing that's happening is more and more and more of us are actually waking up. Not to say we're fully enlightened, but we're waking up. And so the more people that are waking up, the more we can share others, the more we can teach others. I mean, there's so many courses on meditation, spirituality, awakening now. All of this coming just through this exponential growth of awakening amongst the general population. So I'd just like to really finish by saying a few words about what I mean by awakening, because this is the most important thing really, is how do we each further our own awakening or help others to awaken. So if we're talking about awakening, we're talking about not awakening from sleep so much, but awakening from dreams. Well, I think most of the time we actually live in a dream world or dreamlike world, daydreaming. By this I mean, so much of the time, if you look at what's going on in your mind, you're engaged in some thought or other. I call them stories, something that's going on, something you're following, something you're thinking about. Maybe it's, what's going to happen tomorrow? Do I need to do this? What will I say if I meet so-and-so? Or will it rain? What's the temperature going to be? Oh, I must get on with this work or whatever it is. And we then get planning what we're going to do, or we start thinking about yesterday, did I do the right thing? Or that was wonderful. The point is, most of the time we end up in some story or other. And if we're caught up in some story, if our attention is caught up in what we're thinking, what we're telling ourselves, first of all, we're not in the present moment. We're in some future or past scenario. So we're not in the present moment. And that thinking, in a way, it both hides the present moment from us, it veils the present moment, but also it takes us out of our natural mind. And by natural mind, I mean how the mind is when we're not caught up in worry, anxiety, planning, what ifing, if only, etc. When we're not caught up in that, the natural mind is actually one of ease and contentment. That's where we naturally are when we don't disturb it with all our concerns and worries, etc. So all our thinking actually takes us out of the natural mind, because most of our thinking is about some concern, anxiety, or excitement or other. So when we let go of the thinking, and this is really what meditation is about, is when we let go of the thinking, we come back to the present moment, but also, as importantly, we come back to a state of ease. And one of the practices that I like to leave people with is a very, very simple one. I just call it pausing, which means any time in the day, whenever you think about it, just notice what you're thinking, notice where your mind has gone, and just choose just to pause it for now. Just for a moment or two, that's all. And just notice when you pause, you'll notice two things. You'll begin to notice the present moment again. There's that bird song out there, or there's this, or whatever it is, or even just the sound of something in the room, the refrigerator or something. But you'll also notice a sense of deeper ease and contentment. And that's really important, because if we're living from that, if we're living from that sense of ease and contentment, we don't need to be doing all the things we do to chase contentment. So much of what we do, so much of our thinking is about how can we be content in the future. The more we are content in the present, the less we need to be caught up in all that thinking. And we're going to be so much not only happier, that contentment means we're going to be healthier, we're going to be able to be a better service to others. And the more that this contentment is there in the world, the better we are going to be as a society. I mean, just imagine what a society would be like if we're not caught up in fear and worry and all of that and doing things, trying to be happy. Then we could actually be a much more caring and compassionate society. And that's the direction I see us moving. And hopefully, as the global brain just races ahead and becomes more and more mature, we'll be able to use it to help each other just wake up, to step back from all that thinking, etc., to wake up, to come back to actually knowing who we really are, knowing our true nature. So that is my wish for each of you and for the world in general. So thank you for this opportunity to speak to you.